takes place in another time and another place with unbelievable visual and special effects.
The Matrix is a science fiction film, but it's also an action-adventure film. You see things that are fantastic. And you say, well, wait a second, that's impossible.
Freeze it. When they explained to me the kind of movie that they were trying to make, I got really fired up about it because nobody's made this kind of movie before.
It's synthesizing evolution, acting in the construct, giving flesh to a cartoon, soul to a machine.
The movie takes place somewhere in the distant future. It is a time when computers rule the world.
You have a world of people who believe they're real, but actually they're not. They're living inside a computer program, and there are a number of other people within that who are trying to liberate those people from their captivities.
It's about the idea we take everything for granted.
And other times it feels like it's about hope and love and belief.
It's about robots versus kung fu.
And there's some crazy action.
Sydney's a beautiful town. I gotta tell you, I've never seen nothing quite like it.
What unemployed actor wouldn't want 5 months in Australia?
That's better.
Filming on a location in Sydney is actually like a pleasure. We're in a great city that's got a lot to offer and a very professional crew.
Well, here we are in Sydney in a beautiful new facility. This stage is literally brand new. We're the first movie in the stage, and we moved in here to build these sets. The paint was wet on the walls. I mean, it literally, do not touch the walls, they're wet.
That's it. Powder all backlit. Pretty good.
Is it okay if I kind of come forward?
It's always a difficult thing to ask anybody, where do you get your ideas from? Nobody knows. They just sort of happen. A friend of ours asked us to come up with a concept for a comic book. We like kung fu movies.
We like Japanimation.
We like, you know,
John Woo movies.
Dick and books that are, you know, science fiction that is about the sort of nature of reality.
You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
What's interesting about the whole idea of cyberpunk is that it's a great way to create a sense of alienation and disconnection and alternate worlds being caught in sort of these quasi-dream, quasi-conscious states.
Or you want me up like this?
That's the one. That's the look.
I first met Larry and Andy when I read Assassin, and it really was an incredible script. It was a very dark, edgy piece of material, and I really was impressed with that style. And they showed me this animated Japanese cartoon, and they said, we want to do that for real. And you know, and that was an incredible idea to me. I mean, to actually see that animation come to life, and believe me, essentially it has.
We've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson. In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer for a respectable software company. The other life is lived in computers, where you go by the hacker alias Neo and are guilty of virtually every computer crime we have a law for.
I play a man named Thomas Anderson who's looking for a man named Morpheus who's played by Lawrence Fishburne. I'm searching for the answer to a question. The question is, what is the Matrix? my character feels that the answer to this question will somehow make sense of his life.
At last. My character is called Morpheus. And Morpheus is a person who lives in the real world. And he's the leader of this band of people looking for the one. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind.
He is this, like, fevered missionary guy. He's a zealot. We think there is something dangerous about people who believe they have the truth, and they do sort of act blindly.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
There's a couple references to Alice in Wonderland in the movie. I think that is a brilliant book. She comes into this world, and there are all this craziness, and people just give her things and say, eat this, drink this, and everything affects her and changes her, and nothing makes sense, nothing's logical. It's the way you have to do it, and we tried to do that with the beginning of the film.
The thing that I love about Trinity is that I'm portraying someone who's really, really strong and who has a real mission and a real purpose.
Can you fly that thing?
Not yet.
Operator.
Tank, I need a pilot program for a B-212 helicopter. She's a warrior, yet I don't think that she's lost being a woman.
Son. Oh, shit. Agent Smith is the law enforcement, and he's a seemingly invincible machine who develops these wonderful human frailties.
There was an accident. Goddamn car accident. Cypher was a strong disciple of Morpheus, but now I've had second thoughts. Did he tell you why he did it? Why you're here? Jesus. What a mind job. So you're here to save the world.
You go from the 150 to...
Speaking about Larry and Andy together as a pair, as a team of writers, I liken them to the Brothers Grimm. I have to imagine that that's what the Brothers Grimm were like.
Oh, God! Somebody's going to be here.
They work very well together. They've got a wonderful sense of humor. So you do get a dialogue happening that is normally just within the one director's head. So it's normally one director talking to themselves, working out a problem, and then expressing their solution to that problem. Whereas with Larry and Andy, you'll see the dialogue going on.
They're just like real guys, and there's none of that kind of Hollywood thing is not evident at all. You know, they're from Chicago, you know. They wear shorts, they wear baseball hats, they watch basketball games, they love movies, they love, you know, they get so excited. There's nothing greater than doing a scene for them and for them to get excited.
One day, one day I will no longer just be a computer nerd. I will be a superhero. They seek and search for clarity. They're very thoughtful, and yet they're very they have a wonderful sense of humor.
It's really, you know, unusual that directors are so sure of what they want. They write the script, they know exactly what they want, they know exactly what angle they want to see it at, what the actor should say, how he should turn, when he takes the breath in his speech. I mean, they know it exactly.
storyboards. The brothers had storyboards of fight sequences that they wanted to see, certain, punches and kicks and flips that they wanted to see. I see some of the framing of, Frank Miller. There are some Japanese angles and perspectives in it.
Dodge this.
They worked with people that they knew from the comic book world and designed these fantastic things.
We went into first Warner Brothers story meeting and they said, okay, now we know we've bought something cool. We don't know what it is.
Could you just take us through it once?
They helped translate the movie for us. Nobody really understood the level of the action that we wanted in the action sequences, and then when we'd show the storyboards, people would go, oh, geez.
The scale that you can pull off in comics is just always fantastic. You can freeze a moment and make an image that's sort of sustained. There's some action I think you can do a lot better in comics. There's some things that work better in film. Kung Fu is great on film.
Now, I'm supposed to start with these operation programs first. That's Major Barton shit. Let's do something a little more fun. How about combat training?
Jiu-jitsu. I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu.
And action!
Too close.
Or just throw your chest out. Bring it down.
We wanted to do the action differently, and one of the things that we love about Hong Kong action is the way that they shoot fight scenes with long takes and wider angles. But they also do this wire work, which is, it's very fluid, and people, fly around and jump incredibly. It's very balletic, and everybody has a superhuman and supernatural grace. We wanted to bring that kind of wire work to our movie.
You don't have to go up so high like you're reaching for. More out. This looks better. Yeah.
When I first became involved, Larry and Andy were a little frustrated because their dream was to work with this guy that had done Fist of Legend. And through contacts in Hong Kong, we tracked the guy down, turned out to be Wu Ping.
Wu Ping rocks. He's one of the best. We love his movies. We've been watching them for years.
I think it's a good for Lawrence.
He said, I really don't know how they got my number and about me. All that he knew is he was in Beijing making a movie and got a call from Hong Kong saying that the two brothers were really interested in talking to him. He said, I'm very busy, I don't have the time. And then the call came again. He read the script and he thought that script was a very brilliant script. So he decided that he should do it.
One of the incredible experiences on this movie, and unlike any other movie I've done, is that our four leads spent 3 or 4 months training with Wu Ping and his Hong Kong stunt team.
These aren't athletes, they're actors. When you want someone to paint your house, you hire a painter, not an actor who makes believe he's a painter. And they really had to learn a fighting style that they never had learned before. It was a tremendous hardship, but it is evident on the film when you see it that that's Lawrence and that's Carrie Ann and that is Keanu in those scenes doing that stuff, and it's astounding.
We started training in October of '97. Trained all the way through till March of '98. That was on like an everyday basis.
1, 2, feet. Ready, play.
It was a very involving, exhausting process, which I initially thought we were going to be doing Kung Fu for maybe 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. And it ended up being months and months of training.
The interesting thing is in the challenge. And the challenge is how we can make these people look as though they know they are born with the skills.
We all sort of have our own person that is sort of our teacher. And my teacher's name is Ma Dai. He really held my hand in the beginning and was very hard on me at the same time. Chu is Keanu's main guy, and Chu doesn't speak any English. Then we have Dion, who oversees all of us, and he speaks better English than the rest of the guys. And he sort of our go-between Wo Ping and us.
We've had various movie kung fu dojos in Los Angeles and in Australia, and at lunch we'd sit there with our legs, you know, trying to open the rusty gates and stretch and watch kung fu movies and see what was good and bad.
And I really didn't know if I would be able to do what they were asking me to do. I was going every day and getting on the wires and being lifted up just to get the feeling of being lifted up on the wire, and then, you know, practicing sort of getting up the wall and then having the wall padded and then going along the padded wall and then them taking the pad off and me being terrified. Like, I couldn't do the wire that day, the day they took the pads off the wall, because I was so afraid.
He's very inventive and organic the way he works, and you know, you must have your own style, but you also have to have, you know, and you know, good kung fu.
Initially, I think Wu Ping and the wire team, they took us on and thought we were useless, which we were, hopeless at kung fu. But they slowly realized after a couple of weeks that maybe we were going to be able to get to a level where we'd be halfway decent.
It was really intense, but it was a lot of fun. And again, it's, you know, it's the kind of thing that you very rarely get an opportunity to do something like this. I mean, I feel incredibly blessed to have worked with Wu Ping and his team.
Okay, so what do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
Everybody pass out to everybody a rubber handgun, just so when I go over the nomenclature and what the weapons parts are, you guys understand what they are. You can physically have something. And these are 100% safe.
Turn! Kill!
Everybody pick up your weapon and hold it with 2 hands and put it out in front of you. Almost everybody has a great position.
He tried to, you know, not do guns the way they're always done.
Just a couple rounds.
Now the gun's supposed to be at each other's. What are we doing? Directors!
Yes.
Okay.
I tried to make it kind of funny.
Would you please remove any metallic items you're carrying? Keys, loose change?
The sets on the picture all originated from the visual design of the film that Larry and Andy achieved in storyboarding the film. They were executed by and built and designed by Owen Patterson, who's our production designer.
You know, this film is sort of full of many, many details.
An art department is trying to create an environment which is really just an illusion.
This is my ship, the Nebuchadnezzar. This is the main deck.
And we're trying to use like contemporary technology in a sort of slightly retro fashion, and something that looks a little bit different to your archetype sort of spaceship. we've sort of fallen back a great deal onto, and utilised, as Larry and Andy wanted us to do, a lot of Jeff Darrow's drawings, which were the original conceptual thing. But we're trying to sort of promote that idea of a reality that isn't real. You'll look at it and go, oh, it's a real place, but there are these illusions sort of within it.
I think there's some of the most beautiful and spectacular stunt stuff I've ever been involved with. Whoa. There's style and visual effects in these action sequences that has not ever been seen before.
Bullet time, registered trademark. Enter the Gata. The Gata Force.
Do one more. Let's get the wind cue right. Yeah. Nobody's around.
He's around.
So you might want to spin around and face the subject at hand. In this particular rig, there are 120 cameras and 2 motion picture cameras set up. Bullet time is something that was conceived for The Matrix specifically. But I think it's a byproduct of the directors observing technology, and then they ask the right question at the right time.
That's the money cam at the end, that last one where the bullet is basically going to come over your head.
I could shoot the same exact stunt several times over. I can also do things like I can go forwards in time, but then I could also choose to stop the camera abruptly, start moving backwards against itself while the action continues to move forward. I can create a 3-dimensional construction of the object. Everything begins with a simulation, and all the math for how to shoot it works backwards from there. These guys have a lot of specific notions about the worlds that they're creating.
Well, they're pretty over the top in terms of what they want. You're allowed to do things, break the rules that you wouldn't normally do. We're changing speeds left, right, and center. We're going to slow motion to high speed, jump cutting, crossing the line. Everything's going in there.
To achieve what seems like a fairly simple thing to do, to fly a helicopter down the front of the building, shoot a window out and rescue someone by jumping out the window, it seems, as we'll see it in the film, a seamless object. But in fact it's been shot in 2 different buildings, it's been shot on a big set.
Figure out how to make that scene work. We wanted the glass to explode in sort of an ever-expanding circle, and to actually figure out how to make the glass do that, what glass to use. It probably took 3 months of heavy-duty research.
I think it's such a rare experience for a group of actors in film, maybe in theater, but in film to have been working together. We'll almost have been working together for a year by the end of this.
So it's great kind of melding of heart and soul and spirit and action.
Nowhere in nature. And working in a film of this magnitude has been an enormous eye-opener for me. It's kind of chased away a few demons for me, and it's educated me a little bit more. And just working on a film with this sort of budget and on this sort of scale has been a great experience.
And I really think that this is the first film of the next century, of the millennia, the year Y2K, or they're calling it. It is monumental. I think it is. It's groundbreaking. I think it's something people have never seen before, and it's going to take people's breath away. And I think that, you know, there are going to be a lot of films that are going to kind of be disciples of this movie. And I think Andy and Larry are going to start a new visual style that, you know, will be very, you know, well known and well remembered.
are they?
We had to build a set which was about 18 inches wide, I think, 6 foot deep and about 46 feet high. It was a really odd-shaped set.
Since it was dark on the camera side, the light had to come through the top, and it had to go 4 stories and still hold its intensity without being super bright at the top and being nothing at the bottom. As they get lower, more and more lights come on, so that it looks like it's the same light, but it's actually intensifying enormously.
Go! Physical effects had to build all of this lathe and plaster so it could break away. The stunt guys had to come in there and needed to be able to control the actors, or at least their doubles, in this kind of in a controlled descent mode.
The fight in the bathroom is much scrappier than any of the other fights because it's in a confined space.
We built a very basic flat-edge set, and then Wu Ping and his team went in there and rehearsed it. And it started off at one size, and eventually it was kind of like half the size. And they just rehearsed in it and figured out what they wanted.
So it was a much more brutal Western-style fight, if you like.
There were a few trouble spots. I have allergies, and it was in a warehouse, and it was really dusty. They kept putting the power dust on us, that white stuff that they covered me with, so I was sneezing uncontrollably.
I remember changing camera angles a little bit. At one stage, we had to change a few little bits of the fight. I had to block a shot from Lawrence.
Hugo's punching Lawrence's fist as he's trying to throw a punch. He steps and punches the punch. And it was very split-second timing. They did it a couple times, and then it was the third take. Wham! They hit fists, and you heard this like sort of crack, snapple crack. It was just like,
I'm sorry. I thought I'd broken my wrist one day, and it blew up, and so lots of little things like that. It was actually all right in the end.
I think I hit Hugo in the chest at some point.
And I got kicked in the ribs, and both my ribs were cracked. But that was something, again, I didn't discover some way down the track. But it was a kind of dirty, you know, dirty fight.
There's a character who's the woman in the red dress. We took her to set the other day for a fitting, and we're coming down the road, and all the guys on the crew are like falling over, and dropping their coffee, and ogling this poor girl. And there's a big roller door where they all come out at the end of the day. This guy drives out, sees her standing there, stops the car. We can see the roller door coming down, and he's sitting in the car just looking at her. The roller door slams into the top of his car. He gets a really big fright, starts to drive forward. The roller door scrapes all the way across his windshield, all the way across the top, cracks his windscreen, and he's so embarrassed he drives off down the road. So we don't know how he's going to explain that to his wife.
Get me the hell out of here!
Got a patch on an Odags at Wabash and Lake.
Help! Need a little help.
Made him do 22 takes of that. What would be the right gesture? Is he looking, or is he just waiting to see if the agents are coming?
Cut!
My hands suck.
Let's go again. More.
Yeah. You know, he pays really, really close attention to his physical movements. He's painstakingly serious about getting those things exactly as he wants them.
Less of the hand when he comes up and just goes straight out. Pinky's all out.
That's good. Stop picking on the pinky.
How come you always say cut?
My job. That's what I get the big bucks for. Same cuss.
Agent Smith starts to develop some very human qualities that ultimately brings him down. And at the same time, Neo starts to develop certain qualities that steel him against Smith. So that their journeys are kind of in opposition to each other, and ultimately Smith, the machine, is destroyed by the human being who's become increasingly sure of himself.
There's more to it than just basically the vanquishing of the foe. Similar journeys, climaxes, and that sort of merging moment.
Oh, well, very early on in training, in fact on day 2, I thought I'd done something to my leg. So we went to see a very good doctor, in fact it was Keanu's doctor, who immediately diagnosed that I had this thing that I couldn't walk, and I had an edema in my bone marrow. And I had an operation and was on crutches for 6 weeks and slowly recuperated and kind of came back into training again.
It's funny because he had the hip and I had the neck. So it became housed the hip and housed the neck.
This isn't a dojo, it's a hospital, it's a trauma ward.
You're doing it for you like that little bit of pain.
No, there was no pain at all.
Was that general?
It was
local?
Spinal.
Spinal, okay.
So I watched the whole thing.
You saw the...
Yeah, I watched the operation.
Ew! That man is crazy.
Because you can't feel a thing. So it's like someone doing this thing to this leg.
It's not part of you.
It's not yours. They were lifting my leg up and I was going, that's my leg, but I can't feel it.
And there was a whole thing about what were we going to do? Was I going to be out of the film? Was I going to stay in the film? Were we going to put all the fights back to the end of the shoot? Which is what we eventually did.
This whole training process for us, it was real trauma for our bodies the first time around. And I think that was just Hugo's body's way of responding to it. You know?
Hey, what's happening?